Hey everyone, and welcome. We're diving into the world of Spanish e-commerce today.
Sounds exciting.
It is, especially because we've got this, what seems to be a student's final project on the topic,
Yeah.
and it's got some really good stuff in it.
Oh, I always love a good deep dive. I'm really interested to see how e-commerce looks different, in different cultures and markets.
Yeah, for sure. And this one doesn't disappoint. But before we get too far, let's, define e-commerce. It's kind of become one of those terms everyone throws around,
It has.
but it's more than just like buying something on your phone.
Way more. This is like a total shift in how we think about business and finance.
Mhm.
It's not just about the actual buying and selling online, but like using technology to completely change how business works.
Right, right.
Communication, marketing, sales, customer service, all of it totally different now because of the internet.
So it's not enough to just have a website anymore. You've got to be like all in.
Exactly. And this whole thing, it's been building for decades, since like the 1960s even, evolving right alongside the internet itself.
Wow. So back in the day, what was e-commerce even like?
Well, think really, really basic. It was mostly just businesses sharing like very simple information with each other electronically.
Oh, wow. The Stone Age of the internet.
Right. But then the World Wide Web comes along and boom, that's when everything changed. Suddenly anyone could get online, access information, connect with businesses anywhere.
Yeah, that must have been huge.
It democratized everything,
Yeah.
knowledge, commerce, you name it.
That's so cool. And of course, e-commerce has like gone through all these different stages of development, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Just like any tech, there have been generations of e-commerce, each one with new advancements. I mean, remember when you had to like write a physical check to buy something online?
Vaguely. And I'm glad those days are gone.
Me too. But yeah, each generation brought something new. Secure payment gateways, personalized recommendations, all this stuff that we just expect now.
It's true. We take it for granted. Okay, so let's bring this to Spain. What's interesting about their e-commerce scene?
Well, you can't talk about Spain without talking about globalization, right?
Yeah.
They're so integrated into the global market, and that's a huge driver of e-commerce.
So like a little pottery shop in, I don't know, Granada can suddenly sell to people in like Argentina or wherever.
Yeah. Exactly. The barriers are gone. And on top of that, you've got these shrinking distribution chains. Products can move faster, more efficiently, and often that means lower prices for consumers.
Who doesn't love that?
Right. But it's not just about convenience and cost. Consumers now, they have so much more information.
True.
They can compare prices from a ton of different sellers, read reviews, really research what they're buying.
No more impulse buys.
Well, maybe some, but it's a totally different game now.
That's got to be good for businesses too, right? I mean, having all that data on customers.
Oh, absolutely. They're using it for everything, personalizing marketing, spotting trends, you name it.
It's like e-commerce has kind of leveled the playing field in a way.
It has, in a lot of ways. Smaller businesses can compete more effectively. But we do have to remember there are different types of e-commerce.
Oh, right, right.
You've got B2C, your classic business to consumer, like think Zara, those big names.
Makes sense.
Then B2B, business to business, where you've got companies like Pixmania, which is a huge Spanish electronics company doing really well. And of course, C2C, customer to customer.
Like Wallapop. I've heard of that one.
There you go.
So what kinds of things are people buying online in Spain?
It's pretty interesting, actually. This project mentioned that travel, accommodation, clothing, electronics, those are some of the most popular categories.
That tracks, honestly. Like booking a flight online is just so much easier.
Exactly. But it's not all, sunshine and roses. Spain does face some challenges with e-commerce adoption.
Oh, like what?
Well, one of the big ones is the digital divide. Not everyone has equal access to technology or the skills to use it, especially in more rural areas.
Ah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So while some people are, finding amazing deals online, others are kind of being left behind.
Yeah, that's the risk. And then beyond just access, there's also the challenge of, I guess, consumer habits. Some people, they just prefer that in-person shopping experience.
Totally. Sometimes you need to see it, touch it, try it on before you buy it.
Right. And Spain has such a rich culture of like local markets and small shops. So it's finding that balance.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, speaking of real-world stuff, no deep dive is complete without a good case study.
Hit me with it. I love a good case study.
All right, so to get this, we're talking about Soria Magica.
Soria Magica.
Yeah, it's a lottery administration company
Yeah.
in Soria, Spain.
Now that's an interesting one. I'm curious how a business like that, which is so, I don't know, traditional, like tied to its local community. How does that translate to online?
That's exactly what I thought. Like, how do you take something that's so much about those weekly rituals, the anticipation, the community aspect of it?
Right.
How does that become digital?
Right, right. Big questions.
Big questions.
Yeah.
So they partnered with this company called Gadman, which specializes in online platforms for, lottery administrations.
Smart move, getting the experts involved. So what'd they come up with?
So they built this whole platform, and it's got all the features you'd want. User registration, secure payment options, result notifications, like everything you need to play the lottery from your couch.
Convenience is key with e-commerce, for sure.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not just about that. They knew security was super important, especially with online payments and everything.
Absolutely. That's huge for building trust, especially in the online world. So what did they do about that?
They were really on top of it. Implemented secure data transmission, integrated something called a TPV virtual, which is like a virtual point of sale terminal.
Oh, so like those card readers you see everywhere now, but for online.
Exactly. It shows they're serious about security, protecting customer information.
Which is huge, yeah. People need to know their money's safe when they're shopping online.
For sure. And it seems to have worked out for them. Their online platform, it's actually brought in a ton of revenue. Like a really significant chunk of their sales now come from it.
Wow, that's awesome. Shows how even these, more traditional businesses can find success online. But what about the community aspect? I'm curious about that.
That's the cool part. They've actually found that their online platform has, if anything, boosted customer engagement. People are connecting with the brand in new ways, online, talking about the lottery, celebrating wins. It's like a virtual plaza or something.
That's so cool. It's like technology can connect us globally, but it can also bring people closer together locally.
Exactly. Which I think gets at something really important.
Yeah.
E-commerce isn't just about, buying and selling stuff. It's about relationships, about community, even in the digital world.
For sure.
Okay, but let's step back for a sec. We've talked a lot about Sorry Magica, which is fascinating. But what about the bigger picture? Where's Spanish e-commerce headed in the next few years?
Oh, man, get ready, because it's going to be interesting. This is where things get really exciting. We're talking mobile commerce, social commerce. It's all about meeting the customer where they are, and increasingly that's on their phones.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right, and businesses know it. So they're optimizing everything for mobile, making sure the shopping experience is seamless on those smaller screens. And then there's social commerce, which is just exploding.
I've heard of that. It's
Yeah.
like you're scrolling through Instagram, and then, bam, you can buy the shoes that influencer's wearing right there.
Exactly. Or you see your friends post about this amazing new restaurant, and you can book a table right there without even leaving the app. It's all about breaking down those barriers between discovering something and actually buying it.
That's wild.
Like-
So what's the catch? There's got to be some challenges, right?
Of course. I mean, cybersecurity is always going to be a big one. Businesses are going to have to stay ahead of the game, invest in the best security, make sure their employees are trained, all of that.
So it's not enough to just set it and forget it. You've got to be constantly adapting.
Yeah, 100%. Because if your security's weak, it erodes trust. And trust is everything in e-commerce.
Absolutely. And what about the digital divide? We touched on that earlier. What's being done about that?
It's a tough one. And it's not just about access to technology. It's also about digital literacy,
Yeah.
Having a smartphone is one thing, but knowing how to use it safely, navigate the online world, that's a whole other thing.
Totally. I didn't even thought about that, but it makes sense.
And that's where education comes in. Spain needs to invest in digital literacy programs, especially for older generations, people in rural areas.
So that everyone has the opportunity to, benefit from e-commerce.
Exactly. And while we're on the topic of inclusivity, we can't forget about accessibility for people with disabilities.
Oh, that's a really good point.
Right. E-commerce has the potential to be incredibly inclusive, but only if it's designed that way. And that means making websites and apps accessible, compatible with assistive technologies.
So someone using a screen reader should have just as good an experience as someone, using a mouse or a touch screen.
Exactly. It's about making sure everyone has equal access and opportunity. And there's definitely progress being made, but there's still a way to go.
Absolutely. Okay, shifting gears a bit here, but what about sustainability? I mean, with all these packages being shipped all over the place, what's the environmental impact of all this?
Yeah, that's the big question. But the good news is there's a lot of focus on making e-commerce more sustainable.
Yeah.
We're seeing more eco-friendly packaging, a push for carbon neutral shipping, things like that.
Those consumers are more aware of this stuff now, and businesses are having to respond.
Exactly. Sustainability isn't just like a nice to have anymore. It's becoming a make or break factor for a lot of consumers.
That makes sense. Okay, last but not least, we got to talk about customer service.
Yeah.
Because in the digital world, it's not like you can just walk into a store and talk to someone.
Yeah.
So how is Spanish e-commerce handling that?
Well, a lot of companies are turning to technology to help with this. We're seeing a lot of AI-powered chatbots, live chat support, personalized email communication, all aimed at providing quick, helpful answers to customer questions.
So it's about finding that balance between like efficiency and that personal touch.
Exactly, because even online, people want to feel heard. They want to know that there's a real person on the other side who cares.
For sure. Okay, before we wrap this up, I've got to ask, what advice would you give to someone who's maybe thinking about starting their own e-commerce business in Spain?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, first and foremost, do your homework. Understand the Spanish market, the consumers, the culture. Don't just assume that what works somewhere else will work in Spain.
So tailor your approach.
Exactly. And network, network, network.
Get out there.
Yes. Connect with other entrepreneurs, experts, anyone who can offer advice and support. Spain has a really strong startup community, so tap into that.
Like build your own little support system.
Yes. And finally, be ready to adapt. The e-commerce world moves fast. New trends, technologies, all of it. So be flexible, be willing to experiment, and listen to your customers.
Be ready to pivot.
Yes. It's all about learning and evolving.
Awesome. This has been so insightful. But before we let you go, our listeners, we like to leave them with a little something to think about, So we've talked about the past, the present, but what about the crystal ball?
Yeah.
What's next for Spanish e-commerce? What's going to be huge in the next, say, 5 years?
Ooh, that's the big question, isn't it? If I had a crystal ball, I'd be a rich, But I do think one thing's for sure, personalization. It's already big, but it's going to be even bigger.
Oh, like even more tailored recommendations.
Way more. Think shopping experiences that are basically designed just for you. Based on your tastes, what you've bought before, even like your mood that day.
Wow. So it's like the algorithm knows you better than you know yourself.
Maybe. But hey, if it means I get shown exactly what I want, when I want it, I'm here for it. And then I think we're going to see AR and VR really take off in e-commerce.
AR and VR, like augmented reality, virtual reality.
Yep. Imagine being able to, I don't know, try on clothes virtually without even having to go to a store. Like taking a VR tour of a hotel room before you book it. That's the kind of stuff that's coming.
That's wild. Okay, so that's the cool stuff. What about the challenges? What's going to keep those e-commerce CEOs up at night?
Well, cybersecurity is always going to be huge. That's never going away. But beyond that, I think sustainability is going to be massive.
Oh, right. Consumers are really starting to care about that.
Exactly. It's not enough to just have a great product and a smooth online experience anymore. Businesses need to show that they care about the environment, about ethical sourcing, all of that.
It's like their values have to align with the consumer's values.
Yes. And I think in all of this, we can't forget about the human element. Building trust is absolutely essential in the digital world. So even as things become more high-tech, I think we'll see a resurgence of the importance of genuine human connection.
Oh, I love that. So it's like maybe a handwritten note in your order or a really thoughtful response from customer service. Those little things can make a big difference.
Exactly. At the end of the day, it's all about people, understanding them, connecting with them, building those relationships. That's the future of e-commerce in Spain and everywhere else.
That's a great note to end on. So much to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the exciting world of Spanish e-commerce. Until next time.